Today I'll be discussing my thoughts on transgenderism and why it's merely an ideology. Before I continue, I want to make a quick elucidation on why males and females even exist in the first place, instead of just one unified sex or gender. And it's not simply because it'll make things more interesting. This variety exists for procreation and the pure necessity for human life to survive. I am sure everyone is already aware of this, but I think it is important to clarify on the topic of gender and human psychology. Now, I want to show you two figures. If these figures were real people, what gender would they be? I'm assuming you answered that this is a female and this is a male. The question I want to raise in this video is, why? Why do we all agree to call this a female and this a male? We label these figures with either being male or female based on our observations of what biological male and females usually look like. We know innately by associating these physical traits to these genders that it is practical for mating and also useful due to the general truth that we would likely be correct by doing so. So while it is likely that we are correct by saying that this person is female and this person is male, it is ultimately an assumption. You cannot assert with 100% certainty what gender these people are. Now, in a social setting, non-self-proclaimed trans people are generally more inclined to call someone he or she based on pure physical appearance, regardless of their biological sex. These people still prefer or find it easier to follow or state the gender using their learned trait associations. This misconception is due to the illusory truth effect, a tendency to believe that a statement is true if it is easier to process or if it has been stated multiple times, regardless of its actual veracity. Now, for some people it could simply be caused by a courtesy bias, the tendency to give an opinion that is more socially correct than one's true opinion, so as to avoid offending anyone. But let's talk about the actual self-proclaimed transgender people. I say self-proclaimed because they are the ones naming themselves that, not science. Transgenderism or gender dysphoria in an objective sense does not exist. When I say this, I'm not saying there aren't people out there who feel dissatisfied with their bodies, but this very dissatisfaction is a product of possessing a certain ideology. Because you see, if this same person were to be born in the jungle and grow up with no social interaction, this same person would not be dissatisfied due to the very fact that they would not know how a male or female is supposed to be like. This is exactly why gender dysphoria is not genetic or biological even in the slightest, because if it were, they would feel dissatisfied regardless of their situation or circumstance. You'll probably hear transgenders say they were born with it, which is simply not true at all. This dysphoria is caused by growing up in a social environment and getting the impression that males and females must look or act a certain way, and the realization that they themselves aren't normal. You could only come to this conclusion if you define males and females from a typical characteristic perspective. This is ultimately their own personal view of the world. This is where I want to bring up sexism. Not only is holding such a view inaccurate and unhealthy for your mental well-being, it is also a sexist view by categorizing males and females based on stereotypical gender traits, such as wearing a skirt or having long hair, or wearing makeup or having a feminine personality or demeanor. These are all stereotypes of what a woman is. I, like many, don't want people dissatisfied with their bodies or how they are, but this way of thinking should not be accepted or endorsed when in reality there is nothing wrong with being a feminine male or masculine female. The longer people deny this and push some ideal to support otherwise, the more people who will experience this dysphoria. So not only is transgenderism an ideology, it's not even a desirable one. So that about covers my thoughts on this topic. Please let me know if you agree or disagree with what I just said in the comments below, and thank you for listening.